Otakuology Podcast with Otaku Mike Engine Graves.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Otakuology Podcast. I am Otaku Mike, and I'm here with Jen Graves. We talk about a lot of nerdy shit.
We're the ultimate fanboys.
Today, we're fanboys talking about a movie called Fanboys.
Fanboys talking about fanboys. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So this movie kind of is one of my favorite movies. I watch it every so often. This movie came out in 2009. It takes place in 1998.
Right. Which originally we talked about it, and I told you I didn't think I had seen it. I think I may have seen it, or I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of the first movies Kathleen and I watched together.
Yeah.
When we started dating, because it was I would try to find like the weirdest movies I could find to show her, and this is one that I showed her when we were dating.
So what you're saying is we're gonna have to do two movies of what we actually showed the person that we're married or dating, and watch those and review them.
This is probably the best Star Wars movie of all time. I'm gonna put that out there. It's the best Star Wars movie of all time.
Just Star Wars movie?
Yeah.
Well,
anyways.
I just want to point out this one thing that is in the movie, which is right at the very end, for that comment, and it's when they're sitting in the theater and they're like, but what if this movie sucks?
You gave away the ending.
I'm just saying, just overall, what if this movie sucks?
Anyways, you want to get into talking about this movie?
Definitely. So I'm a little shoddy on names.
Okay. So I'll tell you their names. So we have Eric Bottler, who is the main character. We have Linus.
Is Eric the one that his dad gave him the company?
Yes, that's okay. Eric. Eric's the car salesman. Then we have Linus, who is the one who has cancer.
Right.
And then we have Hutch, who lives in his mom's garage, or he likes to call it a carriage house. We have Windows
the guy with the one ball, right?
Yeah, one testicle. Then we have Windows, which is the nerdy guy who is the pedophile. And then we have Zoe.
That's not what he really is.
It's not what he really is, but there's a joke in the movie.
Yeah.
Then we have Zoe, who is the fan girl of the Fanboys,
Which I didn't catch maybe the first time I saw her. In the movie, but the second time I saw her, I was like, "Oh, that's the girl from Forgetting Sarah Marshall and The Good Place."
Yeah, that's Kristen Bell.
Yeah. So I feel like this movie had a great cast of characters because it seemed like a lot of them were people that do play in like the Seth Rogen movies and stuff like that. So it was pretty fun to see them in different areas of the movie.
Yeah.
And a couple other ones.
So synopsis for this movie. In 1998.
Look, I want to point this out real quick.
Go ahead.
So before we actually get into it.
Okay.
So did you know that the person that played Windows and Seth Rogen's character, because he plays two of them, did you know that basically with him, that both of them are actually friends from before.
Yes.
And so seeing both of them in a movie, it always makes me laugh because I'm like, oh yeah, they were
Yeah.
they were best friends.
I mean, I don't know if they're best friends. I know they're friends.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, yes, I know they're friends. They run in the same
yeah,
crowd.
yeah,
Yeah. Because he was in, I think he was also in Knocked Up as well.
yeah. Because I think this is, and you're gonna laugh at this. I think this is pre James Franco because
Yes, it is.
now James Franco is in their group too, but
Well,
this was before that.
now they don't work with James Franco.
They don't work with
Because
him anymore.
no, because he had the sexual assault allegations um, put onto him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So Seth Rogen no longer worked with James Franco.
Okay.
Yeah, he had like some sexual misconduct on a movie or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the whole details, but anyways, getting into this movie
Yeah. Synopsis.
synopsis. In 1998, Eric Butler reunites with his high school buddies Linus, Hutch, Windows, and Zoe at a Halloween party. Now a car salesman at his father's dealership, Butler finds that his friends have not matured since high school. Though they all share the love of Star Wars, the gang anticipates the latest film, Star Wars Episode 1, A Phantom Menace. Linus proposes to Butler that they infiltrate the Skywalker Ranch to steal a rough cut of the movie, a childhood plan that Butler dismisses, because
Yeah.
Linus is essentially sick with cancer.
Right.
This is basically a road trip movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
You want to?
I think that's part of when we were talking about it, of you and I talking about it, that threw me off because
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they were going to go. Uh, I didn't realize they were going to go and see actual episode 1, and I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I was sitting there, and I was like, when it came up, I was like, wait, this is what they were going to go see.
Yeah. So episode 1 has not been released yet at this point. They have like 6 months till episode 1 releases.
Right.
And so this story starts out with Butler going to a Halloween party, and he meets up with Zoe, his former friend from high school, and we see his other friends Hutch, Linus, and Windows. They're dressed up as stormtroopers, and Windows is Darth Vader. And they bust into the party, and they're like, what did they say? Like, fear the dark side or something like that. And everybody's like, oh my god, it's these losers, these fucking
Yeah.
losers. We guys wore the same costumes last year, and we could tell that Eric has had a falling out of some kind with his friends. He has not seen them in quite some time.
Right.
You know?
Which, I mean, since high school, right? That's what they
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, it was
And
like 2 or 3 years
yeah.
to be exact.
Which
Uh,
I mean, I really like his character because you kind of have the whole point of, with his character, he's grown up, and with
yeah,
their characters, they haven't. And so when it comes down to it, I feel like by the end of the movie, we kind of have the swap where he's kind of found, it's better to kind
passion.
of be a little childish again.
Yeah, he's found his passion. What
Yeah.
he's like really passionate at, because he did.
And then
He could.
all of them kind of grew up a little bit.
Yeah, because what we find out is that Eric and Linus had dreams of becoming the next big comic book duo, like the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby esque.
Right.
Linus was going to write the comic, and Eric was going to draw the comic, and Eric pushed his dreams of being a comic artist aside to go into the real world, go into the workforce, and become a car salesman at his dad's car dealership.
Right.
You know, and so Eric meets up with his friends. They all sit around, and you can see that there is kind of some resentment between Linus and Eric. Like Linus really, really resents what happened like 3 years ago. You know,
Yeah.
and but the other two are like happy to see Eric. You know,
Yeah.
and we get this countdown where it's like, okay, guys, it's midnight. It's midnight. You know, let's count down. How many months, hours do we have until Star Wars comes out? You know,
Yeah.
and Linus, is this where Linus brings up the idea to go steal the movie?
No, I don't remember him actually bringing it up.
Okay.
I remember Hutch bringing it up, and then they pull out him and Windows pull out this piece of paper that Linus had actually drawn for them to have, you know, this road trip or whatever that he made back when he was like 9.
Yeah, like they all made it, I believe.
So they find that and they're like, well, what if we, you know, did this, you know, and then
And Eric
we have
Eric was very dismissive of it. He
he
was like,
was
no, yeah,
he's like, oh, it's stupid for us to go in and try and do all that stuff, and you know, we don't have to worry about it, you know, let's
yeah, yeah. He's
let,
basically like, you know, grow up, guys. Come on, like,
yeah, and they kind of like I don't know what I'm trying to say, but they kind of like force him into it. I was looking for one word and then I couldn't remember it. But they
well,
try and like
yeah. The next day, like the next day or like a couple of days later, I can't remember exactly when.
yeah,
But Windows and Hutch show up in Hutch's bitchin' van. Uh, it's all decked out in Star Wars shit, you know.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. And he's like, "Hey guys, what's up? You here to trade in your old shithole of a van to get a new one?" He's like, "No, we're not. You know, don't talk about my van like that. You know." And
Right,
and Windows tells Eric that Linus is dying. Like y'all need to mend y'all's friendship because he doesn't have long to live.
right,
And this is where after that he's like he kind of considers it. He goes over to their house or to Hutch's house, and they're playing video games and stuff like that. And uh, they get into an argument because Eric wants to talk to Linus about the stuff, and Linus just doesn't want to talk about what's going on in his life. You know, he
right,
just wants to basically live life to the fullest until, you know, he eventually passes away,
right.
which is very somber to think about, you know,
That's
in
true.
that aspect, you know. But after that, Eric I think it's another day passed or something, or he's back at work drawing, and his dad comes in, and his dad's like, you know, it's time for the world to see Big Eric because
Yeah.
I'm passing the car dealership on to you.
Yeah, it was really weird that part because you know he kept kind of having flashbacks and nightmares about his dad, and
Yeah,
I was like, I'm so confused on this part. But
yeah, because he was like, basically, you're the right man for the job, you know, and
right,
you know, basically surpassing his brother, his older brother, and um, like giving it to Eric,
yeah,
and Eric's kind of like, he say he agrees to it, but then like he goes to the comic book shop that Windows owns, and he's like, "How much for a Eric Bottler comic?" You know, And he
Yeah.
brings the map. He shows the map, and he's like, "Come on, guys! Like, let's do this." You
Well, he
know?
gives them their comic.
Yeah,
His comic. He's like, I found this in my room or my shed or something, and it was just old drawings and stuff that he had done.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
But I love this. I love this scene where they're at the comic book store, and Hutch is basically like what he was telling Zoe. He's like, "You want to take your shirt off."
yeah. He's trying to Jedi mind control her, and so like it's a comic shop, so she's putting up the new issues that have come out,
Yeah,
and so it's really funny because she's going down one wall, and as she's doing it, she kind of sidesteps, puts the comic down, and every time she takes a step, he's like, "You want to take your shirt off," and then she takes another step and puts another comic up. "You want to take your shirt off," and so
yeah,
finally, uh, he does that or whatever. Windows is talking to Rogue One, which
yeah.
is his love interest that we think about for right now.
Yeah,
And what's the girl's name again?
Zoe.
Zoe. And Zoe turns around. They go, he's in a whole nother world. And she actually turns around and flashes him for quite a long time.
Yes.
And he's still like eyes glazed over, stuff like that. Doesn't necessarily realize that she's doing that. And Hutch is standing behind her like, why? Can you not? And he just kind of. The funny thing is when you're looking at it from a different angle, there's obviously something in the way where you can't see her topless or whatever, but it's enough that you can see her standing there with her arms up and like the very top of her chest, and then you see Hutch behind her like biting his knuckle, like and he's trying to like kind of turn just a little bit from where he's standing to see if he can kind of see around her, and it doesn't work out. But that was a very funny part, I think, too. But and they end up basically getting in and agreeing to work with Eric to plan this trip out for Liam, right?
Linus.
Linus.
Yes.
And so they plan this full road trip, which we know that Eric has a deadline because Eric has to be back at some point to actually take over the company, and he doesn't tell them that yet. But yeah, he Hutch is behind her trying to see her topless and everything, and Windows is just so focused in on talking to this Rogue One character. Which, do you remember what his code name thingy was for this?
I think it was Red Leader.
Okay.
I think it was Red Leader. I'm not for sure.
Because Rogue One referred, obviously it didn't, but it kind of referred to the movie, right?
Yeah, but the movie wasn't out at that point.
Yeah. So what does Red Leader refer to?
Red Leader, I think it's Luke Skywalker's like group or like call sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he's piloting the X-wings, I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I like throughout the movie is that you have people that challenge them and they're like, "Oh, hey, if you're such a big fan, can you answer these questions?"
Yeah. But I love the scene beforehand. I think it is before or after this, where the Trekkies come in, the Star Trek fans, and they're like, "Hey, how much for the blaster?" And then Hutch is like, "We don't sell to your kind. Get out of here! Get out of here!"
Yeah.
He's like, "We only keep this around to to make y'all like want it, basically. Like it's like we're dangling."
No, he said the only reason they keep it is to rule out the Trekkies.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's like, that's how we can tell because none of y'all can ever walk past it and not bring it up.
Yeah. Because it was like screen used, if I remember correctly, or something like that. I can't remember.
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so they all set out on their trip to go off and try to potentially get or steal a print of the the film,
The
Star Wars.
yeah,
Yeah,
which like I said earlier, to some extent, I was thinking this is like an exclusive cut of it,
yeah.
and
It's a
so
rough cut. It's like they're not finished with the movie.
yeah,
It's like,
so
but it's like
I was sitting
before they
there
had
thinking
all
like
their special effects, I believe.
I was sitting there thinking like it was like the Snyder cut or whatever,
No.
and then
This is a. Go ahead.
when they actually get to it, I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
that's what they're talking about.
yeah, it's just like a very rough cut of the movie.
Yeah,
Like, it's not the final version of the movie.
it's not the final countdown.
Yeah. But so they go off on their journey, their road trip to where were they heading to? I think they
They
were
were
heading to
supposed they were
they're heading
supposed
to
to be
Texas,
heading to
right?
Texas. Yeah,
But Hutch makes a detour while
yeah,
everybody's asleep, and he
and they
goes
go
to
to Illinois.
Ohio. They go to like Ohio, I believe,
I thought they
right?
went to Illinois.
Let's. Uh,
Because I think
okay, they
that's the
went
part.
somewhere they went.
They went north instead of south,
Yeah.
and everybody's like, "Hutch, what the hell? Why would?" And he's like, "Oh, they're having some kind of a Trekkie convention memorial thing."
Yeah.
And he goes, I'd take time out all the time if I could uh, fuck with them every time or whatever.
Yeah. And so, but we also find out that they were going to Texas to go get is it who were they going after?
Rogue One,
Rogue One,
because they were supposed to
because
meet at the coffee joint.
she has plans to get into Lucas Ranch. Like she has the floor plans and stuff like that,
Right.
supposedly. And I love this scene to where they're doing the reveal of the statue because they're in the birthplace of James T. Kirk, which is Captain
Yeah.
Kirk from Star Wars. I'm sorry, from Star Trek. Sorry, from Star Trek, not Star Wars. Star Trek.
Yeah.
And they have this statue, and they have the Trekkies all dressed up in their clothes, and they're like, James Tiberius Kirk, blah 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 blah. And you see them, they're making fun of like the statue, like that doesn't even look like Captain Kirk. That doesn't even look like Khan. And they're like fighting, and he's like, that's because we couldn't get the rights to their likenesses.
Yeah.
Or they would sue us.
Yeah. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Well, like, why even build it then?
Yeah, why even build it? And they keep they're kind of like throwing like subtle jabs at the Star Trek fans, the Trekkies. They're throwing they're asking.
We're
like
not
questions.
called Trekkies. We're called Trekkers.
We're called Trekkers. Trekkie is very like derogatory. We're Trekkers. And I like this where one of them's like, so what did Captain Kirk have in his bathroom, like his lavatory? And he's like, blah 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 blah. He like starts rambling off like the details of what he had like in his standard issue like bathroom.
Yeah.
And he's like, wrong. He had a captain's log.
Right. I think that was probably the only joke out of what they were talking about on the thing. I like sat there and I had to pause it because I was like, did they really just say that?
Yeah, and then he's like, oh, funny, 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 and while this is all happening, Eric is in the van. He's like, I want no part of this. Leave me out of it. Let's just go on our mission. Because he has to get back. And as this is happening, like they find out that they're Star Wars fans, and if you know anything about fans, there is a big divide sometimes between Star Wars and Star Trek fans.
Oh, there's a
And they
huge
play this
divide.
they play this up so huge in the movie. Very huge. And so they get into a fight, which is really funny. I think this fight is so funny when they're fighting and he's like, when Windows like time out, time out, time out, and they're all like
Yeah,
trying
because
to
his glasses got knocked off.
and they're all trying to like get one up on each other. And, of course, Hutch is very much like the Han Solo-esque character, ready for a fight, and Eric sees all this stuff going on and he comes in and like, he, when before the fight happens, what escalates the fight is the Trekker calls Han Solo a bitch.
Yeah.
He's like, "Hi, Han Solo's a bitch." And he's like, "What?" Hutch is like, "What did you say?" Han Solo's a bitch. And he's like, "Nobody calls Han Solo a bitch." He like pushes him, and then he pushes him back, and that's how the fight starts. Is because he calls Han Solo a bitch. And I think they called Captain Picard gay. I think that's what happened. Yeah.
Because they kind of have like an exchange of like kind of like weird stuff. They're like, does Star Wars shows people with respiratory problems or something?
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, Star Wars or Star Trek doesn't show or acknowledge the fact of people basically being gay or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then they bring up that whole thing about him basically being gay in Star Trek, or one of the captains.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah. And then, which I like this part because we get a really good view when Eric brings the van around.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it that Hutch had an R2D2 head on top of his thing.
Yeah, he's got a mural on the side of his car as well.
He's got two of them.
Yeah, he's got two. I think one of them is him with Princess Leia, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because one of them is from...
He takes the place of Luke Skywalker in that picture.
Well, there's one on the other side that has the Luke Skywalker one on it.
Is it? Okay, I might have missed. Yeah.
Because there's one that has the Luke Skywalker, and then I think the one that looks like carbonite is the one with him on it.
Yeah, and it basically, if you've seen like Onward, the movie Onward, this is basically kind of like the same car. It's like the same vehicle.
I was thinking of the same thing earlier.
Yeah, that's the best way I can describe this van, where it's like all tricked out and cool and whatnot,
Yeah, and it's not exactly run down though like the other one.
Yeah, it's not like run down, but it's like it has problems, But yeah, Eric comes in with the car and breaks the statue on accident,
I think it was on purpose.
It was it might have been subconsciously. It might have been on purpose. I don't know.
So I like the part of this because they actually must have like really hit this thing.
Yeah.
When they were doing it, because one of the things that I thought was funny, and it would be impossible for them to really cover up, but when he hits it with the car or whatever, and it kind of all like busts into pieces.
Yeah.
They're sitting there, and you can actually see that it's like styrofoam.
Yeah.
And so it's really funny, just as a prop thing, you seeing it happen like that, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, it's like styrofoam or made out of some kind of like plaster of some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I think they tried to play it off that it was porcelain or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was like but they were too poor to get actual good materials for this so-called statue. But I like this.
We have that weird scene where this Seth Rogen's character,
the Trekker, we'll call him the Trekker.
kisses the statue's head.
He kisses Khan's head, I think it is.
Yeah, which in this one we actually do get to see like a close up of the face, and it looks nothing like it.
Yeah, they said it looked like Ricardo Montalban.
I have no idea.
I had no idea. That's one reference I didn't get. So I had no idea. I have no idea who Ricardo Montalban is.
I don't know either.
But we get the scene where they're running away. They're all happy and whatnot, and it's nighttime. They end up blowing a tire, and they have to hike to a biker bar. And they go into the biker bar, and there's very seedy people there. It's a, as they called it, a place of scum and villainy.
Yeah,
and they walk up to the thing, and they're like, "Hey, can I have some water?" And our car broke down. We need some help getting.
Yeah, that's what they asked
fixed.
First. Can you help us with our car? Nope. And then, can we have some water?
He's
and
like
the guy takes a drink out of it. It sets it down. It's not even it's like a half a glass of water.
Yeah.
And he goes, "That'll be $100." He goes, "Oh yeah, you'll pay it." And then we have this kind of scene where Hutch comes in and he goes,
"Yeah,
don't put this facade on me. You think that you're big and bad and all that." He goes, "And you're not. I used to basically rape bitches like you in prison all the time. So
15 times your size, know."
And it's like this whole playing it up, which I didn't really get to read the sign that they pointed at.
Yeah, I didn't get to read the sign as well, but it said something like it had the name of the bar, the name of the biker gang, and it said something like Sissy Boys or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it said.
And then Hutch turns around and he goes, "Well, I guess we'll pay $100 then." And they're like, "No, we're past that." And then you find out it's actually a gay biker bar.
Yeah, it's a gay biker. Our entertainment bailed on us tonight, so you're gonna be our entertainment. And it switches. They're next to a stripper pole, and Menudo starts playing. Yeah. And they're like, "We have to strip to Menudo?" And they're like, "Do you have a problem with Menudo?"
Yeah, well, that's what I like too. The big Mexican guy whoosh, breaks the bottle, and he's like, "You have a problem with Menudo?" I was like, "Oh man!"
And so they start awkwardly stripping their clothes off.
Which I find it funny, looking how fast everybody stripped down. Windows is already in his underpants. He's like,
Did you see he took a sock out of his underpants?
Yeah, I saw it too. I was like, did he put it there ahead of time or what?
Yeah, I mean, some of them were kind of trying to dance. Eric was trying to go with it, but he was nervous. You could tell. And Hutch was like, "Nobody puts baby in a corner. You want some Swayze action, bitches?" He starts dancing and stripping, and he has his shirt off, and I think he's like, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." And
I'm gonna go all the way.
He's he just drops trow. He just completely naked, and they're like, "Oh no, he has one ball."
Disgusting.
He was like, "It was a lightsaber accident when I was younger." Yeah. Which I kind of
that's another thing that I like is everything kind of comes back and is related back to Star Wars.
I kind of wanted to know more. Was it an actual they were playing with lightsabers and something actually happened? Like, did he actually lose a ball?
That's
from the
kind of what
lightsaber?
I was thinking. And there's a part farther in the future of
Yeah.
this that I was actually going to bring up, because they have a part where they're talking about it, and they said where they get to the part where they think they're probably just going to give up.
Yeah.
And you have what's his face?
Linus?
No, Eric.
Hutch?
Eric starts
Eric?
naming off like all the good qualities of each person. And he brings up like, we're big fans, we have to do this. Who would have done whatever trying to actually create their own lightsaber or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that I was thinking is, I wonder if that was the accident.
Yeah. Like, that's what happened when he actually lost a testicle,
Yeah.
But after this, Danny Trejo shows up. If you don't know who Danny Trejo is, he's a very famous actor.
If you don't know who Danny Trejo is, just stop listening and leave, please.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Although I find it really funny, all the different roles that he plays. And I think it's funny just because of the skin color aspect of it. Because Danny Trejo is Spanish,
He's Mexican.
And I think it's really funny because Danny Trejo will play like an Italian guy. He'll play an Asian guy, an Indian guy.
A lot of times he plays like the tough gangster guy.
Yeah.
Because he actually was like in a gang at one point, Like, he just happened to show up on a movie set at one point. And that's how he actually got into his role in the movies. He just happened to walk onto a movie set.
Yeah.
And he became an actor. Like,
right.
if you go into his backstory and like hear him talk about his stuff, like, he has one of the most interesting life stories ever.
Yeah.
Like, it's fascinating. Anyways, enough Danny Trejo stuff.
Danny Trejo.
He shows up and he's like, the chief will take care of you, And so they go and they're sitting around this like circle and they're eating. They think it's guacamole. They're sitting around this fire. It's like guacamole mixed with like peyote.
It is.
Yeah. And so they start like tripping balls. They all just start tripping hard in this scene. And like at one point, Windows sees an Ewok, and the Ewok starts like humping Hutch's leg, or humping Hutch exactly.
Yeah.
And he's like, "There's an Ewok humping your leg. Oh, an Ewok." And like they all just black out.
Yeah.
And Danny Trejo shows up and he's like, "The chief took care of you,
Yeah.
And he's the chief.
Do you think that he knew that that Linus had cancer, kind of, sort of?
I think sort of in some way he did.
Yeah,
it seemed like it.
Because he's the last person to walk up to him when he's telling everybody bye, and he hands him this big ass bag of peyote.
Yeah, I think in some way there was some kind of like spiritual thing where because he kind of seemed like he was like almost like a, what do you call it, like a
spirit guide or
spirit guide of some kind, Hey, can you pause the show for a minute?
Good.
Sorry about that. I had to move into a different room, so we had to pause the show. Technical difficulties, but we're back on.
Right.
So the chief, so I think the chief knew.
All good shows have some kind of technical difficulty at some point.
Yeah, probably. Probably. But I do think the chief, I think he knew. I did, because he said you need this more than I do, And so They end up going off on their journey. And after this, when they eat the guacamole and they trip out, they go to Texas. They're in Texas, correct?
Right.
And they go to, they don't specifically say where in Texas, but they go to Java the Hutt's like cafe,
Yeah.
which is like a Starbucks type of place. And I love this scene. I love this scene where they all get out of the car. It's been a long ride for them, you know. They're stretching and whatnot, and Windows gets out of the car. His hair is kind of like slicked back a little bit. He's got his glasses off. He's like, you know, mint me. They put a breath mint in his mouth, and he has like this long sleeve button up shirt with like ruffles going from neck to down, all the way down, like this ruffled shirt, and it has like it has like a paisley print on it. It's like a pink and purple paisley print. Yeah. And he's walking in and he's going, because he can't see, he doesn't have his glasses on, and he's walking through and he's like rogue leader, and he gets to where he can see, and he thinks it's the girl he was talking to, but it's like just a pretty guy with nice hair. And I love in the background when you see through the window and they're just like making, his friends are just making these like overtly sexual like gestures. Like one of them's like rubbing their nipples, one of them's like making out with the glass, and one of them's like humping the glass.
Yeah.
And
trying to support their friend.
He's like, oh no.
When they find out that it's a little girl.
And so he no, when he finds out it's the guy, he's like, oh no. And he turns around, you see
well, did you see what the guy did when he said hello, beautiful or something? And the guy kind of does this little wink.
He winked and waved at him.
Yeah.
He winked and waved at him. Yeah.
I was like, oh no.
And so he turns around and tries to leave, and that's when he sees Rogue Leader, right?
Yeah.
He sees the girl, and his vision gets better. He puts on his glasses. He's like, "You're Rogue Leader?"
He's like, "You gotta be like 14. I'm 10."
He's like, "I'm 10." She's like, "I'm 10." He's like, "Oh my god! I'm a pedophile! I'm a pedophile!" And they run and grab him, and like they just run out of the coffee place, and he's like, cyber sex isn't really sex, right?
Right.
I was like, oh my god. And this could have went down a darker turn.
Well, that's the weird thing too. Like when he says that, I was sitting there thinking, like, how does she have, enough info or whatever to pull off the moves for him to not know that,
I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. They didn't go into that much detail of what like the conversation was between them. I'm guessing it was probably mostly just like Star Wars talk. I'm guessing.
Right.
I don't know. They didn't really go into that much detail. I mean, I don't know. But I love this part where where you see this big hulking man come out, and he's got like orange long hair and
which, can I say, that was the funniest thing, because he said that was his niece, and I was like, they don't look anything alike.
His name's Harry Knowles, and Harry Knowles is the expert on Star Wars. Like, he knows everything about Star Wars, apparently.
Right.
And he's like, which one of you is Windows? And he starts like beating the shit out of all of them.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I might be able to help you out, and give you the floor plans and stuff like that. But if you're true Star Wars fans, you'll answer my questions. And they start answering the question. He's like, what do you say? Like, y'all are only
Y'all
stronger than your weakest link.
y'all are only as strong as your weakest link.
Yeah, and the weakest link was Eric. And he asks him, "What is Chewbacca's home planet?"
Which
And he,
that was one of my other things thinking about it and bringing it up is, do you think it's because he wasn't wearing the other clothes or whatever, like them, like the Star Wars t-shirts and stuff, that he was the weakest link?
I don't know. I think maybe he just like sensed it.
Okay,
Like maybe because the way he was acting, I don't
that's
know.
where I was caught between if he knew that for real, or
Yeah.
um if there was something that keyed him off towards that. Because
Yeah.
there's kind of a lot of points in this movie where somebody assumes something and it just seems to be correct,
Yeah, it's hard to tell exactly what he was thinking.
Yeah.
I just think maybe because he knew, because he was just a big Star Wars fan, he could just probably tell and figure out.
Yeah.
Hey, can you pause again?
3.
All right. Sorry about that. Another technical difficulty on the show. My dog keeps whining. I think my dog wants in the room. I can't tell.
I don't know why that was so funny. Sorry, my dog went in the room. Be like, can I not have a room to myself, please?
Can I not have a room to myself, please?
If it's not a family member, it's one of the animals. You need the whole room to yourself. You can't just let me have this one thing in life.
Anyways, so they passed the test. And they're like, okay, you need to go to Vegas and find... I don't remember who they told to find. It was his contact.
Yeah, I can't remember what... There was a name with it, but I can't remember the name.
Yeah, it was... And they like used the code Scruffy Nerf Herder.
Yeah, that's what it was. His name was something weird, but it's we need Scruffy Nerf Herder.
Yeah.
Which, they leave, which before this, we also find out that that's the contact.
Yeah.
And Eric actually says, hey, I only have like the weekend left to even do anything. And he finally reveals that his dad gave him the company.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of a big part now because we are kind of set at a time limit of what we're going to do.
It's very much a turning point in this aspect of the story, because they end up getting caught by the police.
Yeah,
because they're
which I was not expecting this part. This is probably like one of my favorite parts of the movie, is where they're talking about it and you see everybody kind of like start to buckle up a little bit, except for Eric, and Eric's like,
when they're
what's going on.
When they're freaking out because they're going like 85 miles an hour down the highway.
They're trying to make their time.
Yeah.
And you have that, and you have the police get on their tail and try and actually pull Hutch over and everything. And then I guess, which he kind of says it earlier, he says, don't hit this button. And I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. I guess maybe I missed like actually visually seeing it, but where he's like, oh, hey, like we have to do all this stuff and get ready. And then they hit the button and we have this kind of like jump space part.
Yeah. So they're essentially running away from the cops. And
yes.
And they're like, can't this thing go any faster? And that's when you find out that Linus has the peyote. And I think Windows starts eating the peyote. I think, like, try to get rid of it at one
I
point.
think so.
And they're like, okay, we're gonna get through this, buckle up, go trying to start to hyperspace, because one of the rules in the van is don't touch the red button,
Right.
And so they just start flipping the stuff and flipping the switches, and they push the red button and nothing happens. Like, the car starts to die. And he's like, man, I put some NOS in this. And he, like, hits his head against the steering wheel. And that activates the nitrous, which is so funny because you hear the, like, the,
Yeah,
like the
the
R2D2 sound.
R2D2 thing. Yeah, I love that. Well, and then they go so fast, like, he can't steer.
Yeah.
And they go through a billboard, which I think was selling
the police department. It said, like, join the force, and
no,
it had
it was the
like
army. It was the
was
army.
it the
That's
army?
what it was. Yeah.
Okay. And
Um,
they go through it, and it makes an outline of Darth Vader's helmet.
Yeah, and then they do this really, like, far back view from it, and the brake lights from the van look like Darth Vader has red eyes, and I think that was a really cool part. I was like, man, that's genius. I love it.
And so they all get
arrested.
They all get arrested, and they're all in the holding cell, and they're like not like they're not on good terms. None of them really are, because of what Eric said. Eric's got to go back.
Right.
And I love this scene where, like, Hutch is like, maybe I shouldn't have called the officer a fag,
Right.
And you see the officer come in, he just starts hucking ham and cheese sandwiches at the guys, the fanboys. And they're like, oh, ham and cheese, oh, that sucks. And Hutch is like, well, things are about to suck even badder, And he's like, Windows, give me your ham and cheese sandwich. I gotta go drop a deuce. And because he doesn't want to sit on the toilet.
He said, I'm not gonna sit on a toilet where there could be criminal germs to touch my butt.
Yeah.
Which here's the other thing with that I have to question is he had his sandwich and one of their sandwiches. And as he was taking it apart or whatever, it's like evenly spaced out apart. So there's spaces in between. And I just wasn't like, if you were going to not do that, then wouldn't you need like more so you didn't touch it at all?
I guess, but I guess he was working with what he had,
I guess. I mean, he had 2 more sandwiches he could have.
And then, I love when the sheriff walks in and he's like, Good God, boy, what are you doing to that ham sandwich?
Yeah, what are you doing with those ham sandwiches?
And he's like, you guys are released. You got bailed. And you see Zoe show up, and Zoe's like, this really sucks. And then Windows is like, what we've been through sucks even harder. We had to watch Hutch take a shit. And it turns out that she cleared out all of the comic book store, like all the money that was in the safe, cleared it out to come take 2 buses, a train, and a plane to get to them. I think it was.
Yeah.
And Windows is upset because she cleared out like all the money. Well, he's like, if it wasn't for me, you'd still be stuck here,
Right.
And they meet the judge, and the judge is Billy D. Williams. Did you know that?
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
I mean, I knew the face. I didn't know the name.
Yeah, that's Billy D. Williams. I know him personally.
Really?
I know him personally, Billy D. Williams.
Really?
We peed next to each other.
We've peed next to each other. Does he want to come on the podcast?
Probably not.
You can always ask.
True. But yeah, and we find out that, they're going to go free because Eric's father was like, he believed Eric's father because he got in contact with his father. And he's like, come home or you're fired, basically.
Right.
So Eric is distraught. They're sitting on the edge of like I don't know if it's like a cliff or something, and they're just like, it's nice out here. I could stay out here all, forever, And he's obviously upset. And they're going to, Linus goes over there to talk to him, correct?
I don't know if I remember seeing this part.
Did it? Or yeah. Because they're talking, and this is when they're gonna send Zoe back to their town that they live in, and she's like, if one of y'all can beat me, I'll go back, but I'm not going back. And that's when she beats up Hutch, and then they get the new resolve to go finish their quest, basically. And after this is when they go to Las Vegas. They go to Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. So they go to Vegas and they kind of split up, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
And
it's funny, I think it's funny though when they're like, oh yeah, let's do Vegas fanboy style.
Yeah.
Which is watching Stargate in a hotel room. That's what they do when they go to Vegas.
Right. I was like, I'm confused on this, but okay.
Yeah.
But then they also find out that at the same place they're having a Trekkie con.
Yeah, and this is where they're supposed to meet the contact.
Yes.
And Linus and Eric meet up with the contact, and the contact is William Shatner.
Which they asked one of the Trekkie guys, and if you're paying attention, you actually know that this is the Trekkie Seth Rogen.
No, he's not him.
It is him.
No, he was in like makeup, and it was somebody different. But the Seth Rogen character, the Trekkie, was sitting at a table next to them, and he noticed that they were there.
He wasn't the guy dressed up as the Klingon?
No, he wasn't. That was somebody else. Yeah.
Maybe he played three characters.
Maybe it pans away. It pans away, and you see him at a table. I think it's like a craps table or like a poker table, and they're gonna go track him down.
Yeah. And
I like this part where he throws them the floor plans, and he's like he gives them his book that he wrote. He's like, for the road, if you get bored,
Yeah.
He's like, what's this, and he's like, and one more thing, we never met. And he's like, I'm William Shatner.
He also says, tell Harry Knowles that that my debt's paid.
Yeah, like, we're good, we're square. And he's like,
which I really wanted to know, like, what it was too. Like, what did he have on William Shatner?
Yeah, what did he have on William Shatner? Where Shatner had to go undercover to get all this stuff,
Yeah,
it was funny. And he's like, yeah, I'm William Shatner. I can get fucking anything I want,
Which we have this other part because the team kind of splits. They almost like Scooby Doo it, which is kind of weird. Yeah. And then you have Windows and Hutch and Zoe, all sitting there, and Zoe is kind of laying stuff on thick. Just Windows is totally like dumb.
He's clueless. Yeah, he's dumb. He's clueless.
And Hutch ends up thinking that they are picking up girls that are just going to the casino to hang out, have a good time. and everything. And so they go back to a hotel room, and you have one room with windows, and you have this other room with Hutch and this other girl. And Hutch tries the Jedi mind trick thing again, and she actually takes her top off.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like slowly working her down or whatever. It takes an hour, and you have windows in the other rooms, basically like having a beer with this other girl, and her just saying, "Oh, hey, that you're kind of oblivious to that girl that was with y'all likes you, and
and she likes him like a lot."
Yeah, and making him realize his feelings for Zoe as well.
Yeah, because he always thought of Zoe as like one of the guys. He didn't look at Zoe like a girl, like a woman.
Right.
She was just one of the guys.
So,
I love this part where he realizes they're like prostitutes or escorts, as they call themselves.
Yeah, where she's talking to him, and she goes, "Oh, whenever I escorted."
Yeah.
And then he runs into the other room and tells Hutch that, and she's like, "Well, your hour's up."
And he's like, "What?" He's like, "How much for another hour?" He's like, $1,000. $1,000? What? We didn't even do anything.
Right.
Which is funny to think about. And then you're like, "Well, you're gonna have to answer the Roach." And he's like, Roach is our pimp, And Roach comes in, and Roach is is played by Seth Rogen, and he's like this redneck pimp, with a mustache, fucked up teeth,
and
he has
two half Star Wars sleeves.
Yes, one's dark side, one's Rebel Alliance, and he like starts choking Hutch, and he's like, "You're gonna pay me my money, I would give me my $2,000." And he's like, Rebel Alliance, and he's like, "Speak up, boy." And he's like, "Rebel Alliance, we're Star Wars fans." He's like, "Well, why didn't you say so? Check this out."
Does that give us a discount?
Does that give us a discount? And he's like, "Look, on this side, I got the Rebel Alliance." And he's like, "Whoa." He starts talking like Yoda. He's like, on this, like, "This is the dark side, the dark side." He has like Darth Vader and like the Emperor on one side. He's like, he's like, "Check this out." He's like, I'm getting this for episode 1. And he pulls up his shirt. On his back, he has Jar Jar Binks and Anakin Skywalker doing like the "what's up" pose where their arms are crossed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
He's like, Jar Jar Binks is going to be big. It's going to be big. Popular character.
Yeah. Side characters don't seem like they're not that anything, but he's going to be something.
He's going to be something. And I was like, oh my God, that tattoo looks bad.
And then they try and knock him out.
They do.
And they run away.
For a time, they knock him out.
Yeah, and he starts chasing them down. And on the other side, with Linus and Eric, the Trekkies actually find where they're having this little meeting at. William Shatner gets away, and they're running from them. And then we have this kind of really cool scene that I like, where they're stuck in the middle between the redneck pimp Star Wars fan and the Trekkies.
Yeah.
And we have this thing where, because Seth Rogen plays both these characters, they do like a thing where they have to go from one angle behind somebody's head to the next angle. And it keeps going back and forth. And you're like, that's the same guy.
Yeah.
And then they have a part where they clash, and they have to figure it out and kind of...
Because he calls Han Solo a bitch.
Yeah.
And redneck Star Wars pimp gets mad because he's like, you don't call Han Solo a bitch. And he kind of holds them all off on by himself.
Right, which that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
I was like, I
He's
wonder
like,
if it's because they were all nerds.
maybe. So they get off, they take off, they get in the van. Roach jumps onto the hood of the van, and they're trying to get away. Roach gets flung off the car or the van, and they find
Yeah.
out that Linus is not in the van. Linus is gone. Linus fell out of the van because I guess the door didn't shut or the door came open.
Well, I didn't even know because I didn't even think that he actually made it to the van.
Okay, I thought he like fell out of the van.
But because of his cancer, it, knocked
Yeah,
him out.
yeah, and so they end up in the hospital.
Yeah.
And the doctor is saying, look, like he is really sick. He needs to go home. Like he is not up to go to, was it San Francisco they were going to? Or
Maybe.
California?
Yeah, it was somewhere in California since they were
Yeah.
in Los Angeles or LA.
Yeah. And right here we get another cameo, which is Carrie Fisher, who played Princess Leia.
Yeah, it's the doctor.
And as the doctor, and they're like, look, like Linus is like, no, like we need to go. We need to go do this. And so they break out of the hospital, and she's like, you can't leave. And she's like, yeah, she stops him, and he's like, take this medicine with you. And he like kisses her.
Take it every 3 hours.
Yeah, take it every 3 hours, and he kisses her, and they're like, oh, they're shocked that he like kisses her, and he's like, I love you, and you hear her whisper, I know. which is from Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, which I kind of wonder too if that was like a fourth wall break joke.
I think it was,
because like that's kind of the thing is everybody says like with her like they love her.
Yeah.
And so when he kissed her and said that, it kind of seemed like that was the part that might have been just something that happened.
Yeah, true.
And they added it in there.
Yeah. And so after they escape from the hospital, they actually get to Skywalker Ranch.
Yes.
And do you want to take this part?
Yeah. So this mansion is done up real crazy. Like there's like Christmas lights on all the edges. And they get in. There's nobody there.
Well, wait. I want to talk about the part where they go up to the wall, and they're like, all right, because at the beginning of this movie, Windows put a grappling hook in the van.
Right. And it's kind of a reoccurring thing because like when the tire pops, Hutch says, well, somebody didn't have to take the spare tire out to put the grappling hook in.
Yeah. And he's like, well, we need a grappling hook for covert operations. And I like this scene where he throws the grappling hook up to the wall, hooks it, and he's going to climb over the wall. And he's on the top, and they just like walk in through a side door.
Yeah.
He's like, it was unlocked, He's like struggling to climb up this wall.
Yeah.
Oh, that was funny. Anyways.
Which I mean, that kind of reminded me of there's this other little thing that I watched that's a little TikTok, and this guy's trying to get over this fence, and he can't do it, and the girl opens the gate and walks through and helps push him over, and when he gets over, the guy that's helping him out and the guy that got over the fence, they're both sitting there and turn around and they look at her like they're so stupid.
Yeah, was that like in an escape room?
Maybe.
I think yeah, maybe.
But
I think I
mean, it was funny because they just opened it and it was like, what?
Yeah.
That's what I felt with this moment.
So like nobody is in this the Lucas Ranch. They're just going through and trying to. I mean, I think there's security guards.
There are security guards, but we don't see any of them for like a while.
Yeah.
They're all going through like different stuff. They're playing with the Indiana Jones props, and
so they find a room. Yeah, they find the prop room, which was like their mecca,
for his other movies, not Star Wars, just his other movies.
Yeah,
There was
like
some Star Wars stuff in there, but
yeah, but like he's like, "Hey guys, look, it's the wand from Willow," and I was like, "Oh man, that's a deep cut right there."
yeah. No,
Because
the
nobody
book,
watched
the
that movie.
grimoire.
It's the Grimoire.
Yeah, I
Is that
think
what
it
it
was
was?
that, and the wand was sitting beside it too.
Okay. And yeah, and they're just like looking and talk. Like you just like they're at all that they get to see these props. And
Which
is this when
I
the
backed it up and watched this scene twice because I didn't get to see what all was. And when they said that, I was like, Mike showed me the Willow movie.
I mean, it's not a popular movie. I think it has its fans, but it's not that popular.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good
Yeah,
though.
it's okay. It's okay.
It might get covered on the podcast.
I mean, maybe it's getting a sequel.
Week.
But yeah, this when the guards come in.
No, that's also when Hutch is playing with the egg and everything from Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah,
And
and then the guards come in.
Yeah, and they're all wearing like these weird face masky. I mean, they're not exactly face masks, but they are.
Like face mask helmet things.
Yeah, and they all have numbers on them, and it all makes them sound like stormtroopers.
Yeah, and they take off one of them takes off their helmet, and it's Ray Park, who played Darth Maul in Star Wars Episode 1.
Yeah.
And he's like they're like put down the idol. And is this where he tries to fight them and do like all his flippy tricks and stuff?
Maybe.
Right? I think maybe or something like that.
I know they get in the elevator and they ride up to like this big dining hall thingy.
And they also they throw the idol when they're trying to get away from the guards. They throw the idol at him, and like they kind of jump through the door that they went through. Like it's like a Star Wars door that opens up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Hutch like gives them the finger.
Yeah.
And they're running away. And yeah, they go into the it's like dining hall.
Yeah,
and they're trying to get away.
They take the elevator upstairs to the dining hall.
Yeah,
and then they go down the trash chute.
The trash chute, right? I love this scene because it was a replica of the trash compactor from Star Wars.
Yeah,
episode 4.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my god, we're gonna die. And then Zoe's like, hey, numbnuts, it's the air conditioning. We're not gonna die, you know. Is this when they pull them out of the garbage, right?
Who pulls them out of the garbage?
The guards.
No.
Yeah.
No, the AC kicks on and they think that the trash compactor's actually activating. And they're like, oh no. And they start grabbing stuff. We'll have to use this to slow it down so we can figure out a plan.
Yeah, I said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, numbnuts, it's the AC.
That. Yeah, they open that and they kind of like run around the hallways and everything, and then they get to Lucas's office.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And that's when we meet one of the best actors of all time, Danny McBride, one of my favorite actors. And he's like the head of security.
Oh no, we have the other thing right before that.
What's that before that?
We have where
when they're in his office, correct?
Yeah, we have the white guard and the other guy, Delaney, that plays in all the movies too with Seth Rogen. And it's really funny because we have where Linus picks up the Millennium Falcon. He goes, "You let us go, and y'all get up against the wall, or I'm going to break this." They're like, "You won't do that. You're a fan." And then Eric picks up like a little drone thingy. And goes, well, if he puts that down, I'm going to throw this on the ground. And then one of the guards picks up a puppet of Yoda and says, "I'll rip this to shreds if y'all don't put that shit down."
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. Okay. Yeah, because after this was when they get the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you said Danny McBride, and he
Yeah,
goes in.
Danny McBride goes in and he questions each and every one of them to see if they're actually truly fans of George Lucas, in Star Wars.
Right,
And this
which
is
I find it funny that like he would ask two questions and it would be Star Wars based, and then the third one was something sexual.
Well, all the sexual ones were for Zoe, I believe.
No, all
right?
this he asked each one of them a sexual thing.
Okay, yeah, and none of them can
'cause
answer, but Zoe's the
asked-
one who answered the sexual ones.
Yeah, he asked Windows where the clitoris was.
Yeah.
And then he asked Hutch if he knew what some position was.
Yeah, something like that.
He asked Eric, I think, how do you receive that position? And then he
It's like a
asked
dirty Sanchez or something like that.
Yeah, something weird. And then he
Something.
asked Linus what were the bumps on a nipple call?
Yeah, that's what it was.
And then the thing that he asked Zoe was, what's a Alaskan fish hook or whatever? And she starts like in detail telling him what it is. And he's like, oh, you're well versed.
Yeah. And so like, he's like, y'all are obviously fans because none of y'all can answer like the sex questions or whatever.
Right.
You're all virgins. And he's like, y'all can see the movie.
Yeah.
But only one of y'all can see the movie, and it's you.
Yeah. Which, so the other thing is that we know is when they first walk into the room that they know everything about all five of them already.
Yes.
So that's why they go, okay, you can go ahead and watch the movie.
Yeah, Linus gets to see the movie.
Yeah, which somewhere in here, we do have the confession of Windows to Zoe, and that plays into it a little bit here and there.
Don't they end up having sex?
Yeah, they have sex later on.
Okay.
And then we have where everybody's sitting out at the van waiting for Linus to watch the movie.
And while you get to see Linus like actually watching the movie.
Yeah.
And he comes out. He doesn't really talk about it. He just he enjoyed his experience, I believe.
Which he does look a little worse for wear because it does look like he's been sweating a lot.
Yeah.
So he's getting fairly close.
Yeah, and you find out after their road trip.
They go camping.
They go camping. After they go camping,
and then you have the whole part where Eric and Linus have this whole part where they talk about the past.
Yeah,
I'm sorry for leaving, and
they rekindle their friendship, and they mend fences.
Yeah, which then we get the sad part whenever he's sitting there drawing, and then he says, "Hey, I'm going to go back over here with everybody else," which I thought it was weird already that they had two campfires, but the scene wouldn't have worked out if they didn't.
Yeah.
And they walk over to this other campfire, or he does, and he says to Linus, Eric says to Linus, he says, "Oh, hey, are you coming?" And he goes, "No, I'm good right here." And then you kind of get this thing where it's about to happen, and Eric walks over there, and it does this zoom in on Linus' face and goes, "I'm good right here."
Yeah.
And
because a couple weeks later, he ends up passing away.
Yeah.
I believe.
And then they wake up in a tent in front of the actual, episode 1.
Yeah, so it's Linus, Zoe, and then Eric shows up. And they're
Linus
"Where's Hutch?"
Linus
isn't there. Windows, Zoe.
Yeah.
And then Eric shows up. And they're like, "Where's Hutch?" And Hutch is getting finishing
No,
his
yeah,
touches
Eric's
right
in the
on
tent
the.
with them.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah,
And they're like, "Where's Hutch?" And Hutch is finishing up his. He's starting his detail business that he wanted to do
yeah.
because he wanted to do like detail cars and stuff like that.
He calls it the Hutch touch.
The Hutch touch, which is classy.
Yeah,
And you can see that they've all changed and grown a little bit. Hutch has grown and done started a business. Zoe and Windows are in a relationship, and Eric does his dream with Linus. He starts the comic that Linus and him did together.
Yeah,
Which I'm guessing it was
he's
all written out beforehand.
well. So I don't know if I think he had the pre-plan for it,
Yeah.
and that he made it, and it kind of went from there. But he's still over his dad's company too.
Yeah. And I like this scene where like these fans show up of Eric's, and they kind of like
And
they
Boba
they
Fett's
kind of
it.
like they kind of like dog his comic a little bit because his comic is based on his friends.
Right.
I think it was called Fanboys. I can't remember what it was called.
Hush.
Was it?
Yeah, that's what the top of the thing said was Hush.
Oh, it was Hush.
Yeah, that's the name of the comic.
And you see them, they're like, they're like, oh, it's cool meeting you, but your comic kind of sucks a little bit, I think that's what they said. I can't remember. And
Yeah.
you see his brother show up, and he's like, hey, dickheads, like, just get the comic signed and be happy, that you got to
Right.
meet a comic book creator. Because we know his brother's like, his older brother's kind of like makes fun of him, but he cares about him. He can tell.
Yeah.
And he's
he goes,
like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. And he's like, it's the wars.
It's the wars, man. You can't miss the wars.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, they all bond over Star Wars, which is pretty cool. And I like when we get into they're sitting at the end of the movie when they are sitting in the seats and their credits start to go. And they're like, hey, guys, what if this movie sucks? And that's when it ends. That's when it ends. And I'm like, oh, this is a perfect movie. I love this movie.
Yeah.
This movie was so great. What did you think of this movie?
I liked it.
You liked it?
Yeah, I liked the hidden gems in it, though. Like, while you're watching it, things that are said and stuff like that. And it made it really enjoyable, especially, like, knowing part of the stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's really funny, like, if you watch it and you do know Star Wars references and stuff like that or anything,
Yeah.
I think that's what made it real fun to begin with. Anybody
go
that's
ahead.
not really a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan or anything like that, yeah, it might not be like so good for you. But I mean, honestly, in this day and age, if you haven't seen Star Wars, that's almost like saying you haven't seen Harry Potter. So
yeah, I mean, I love the in jokes and I love the references and stuff like that. But for me personally, it was the story of the characters of the friends.
yeah,
like I really hooked onto that aspect because, like, in our lives, like as being nerds or whatever, fans of different genres, we have friends who are like this.
that's true.
We and there's some of us who don't always grow up and who stay in the fandom, but we're all still technically in the fandom, but some of us don't move on and grow up and stuff like that. So it's really interesting to see that Eric reconnects with it and finds his dream and stuff like that. And like I said, the others grow up as well,
Right.
and it's just interesting to see. Like,
And I mean, to add to that, kind of what you said, I think that this movie is really good too, because with most people, and I mean, me and Mike can both tell you this from past relationships or whatever, is a lot of people see that, you can't have both. It's one side of the street or the other. But with this movie, I feel like it really does show you can have both. You can
Yeah,
be an
yeah,
adult and you can still have all these hobbies and stuff that you like pertaining to something that you like Star Wars or Harry Potter or whatever, and you
hmm
can support that. And
yeah.
it doesn't make you a child or anything else
No,
because, you know,
like yeah, no. I think it does tell like a good message. Yeah, people are gonna shit on you all you want for liking what you like, but like you can still have a normal, successful life and love being a fan of a movie franchise or comic books or
right.
collecting toys or reading manga, watching anime, stuff like that, I think it does have that good message, and that's why it's one of my favorite movies. Like I
Yeah.
love this movie so much. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
I like the message that it ends with, and
Oh, yeah,
like I
for
would
sure.
love, like I was watching a panel, like a reunion panel this year, and they had like all the guys there, and they had the
Yeah.
creators and stuff like that, and they were like, yeah, we would love to do a sequel, and they had plans for a sequel, um and eventually, but they don't own the rights to the movie,
Right.
and they would have to buy it from like a bank, I think it was, because Harvey Weinstein owned this movie, the Weinstein Company. If you know what the Harvey Weinstein did was terrible.
Yeah.
And so like they would love to do another movie for this and set it like down the road, like have they change,
Right.
because society has changed. Like
Right.
the fandoms
Well,
have changed.
I mean, I'd almost want to see like another movie even like this, and it wouldn't even have to be based off of Star Wars. Like it'd be cool if somebody made one like for Harry Potter or Lord of the
Yeah,
Rings or
yeah.
something like that, and kind of went on that journey.
But to think like how much fandom has changed, because like when this movie got released in like 2009,
Yeah.
we didn't have like social media like it is today, where we
No.
have like we're even more rabid, even more like you have so much information at our fingertips, and how like much like the fandom of, say, like even Star Wars has changed, where like it has become very toxic,
Yes.
like very toxic to be a Star Wars fan, you know and like how would that affect our characters now? Would they still be fans because of the prequel movies? How would they feel about the new movies, stuff like that?
Oh yeah.
Like how, like I would love to explore that, because I mean, right now the Star Wars fandom is a fucking shit show, to be
Hey,
honest.
the other one that would be really cool for them to do is like the MCU.
Oh yeah,
That would
that would be
be
interesting. That would be interesting. Yeah, yeah.
going through all those movies and stuff.
Oh man, yeah. But yeah,
So,
I would love for a sequel to this movie. Like, I know it did. I think it did okay, but it became more of like a cult following movie. It's like a cult movie. Um, but yeah, like I love this movie. It's fun.
yeah.
You sucker me in with nerds and throw in a road trip movie. I love road trip movies, and it's a comedy on top of that. Like, fucking come on, like
Right.
I found one of my favorite actors in this.
Yeah.
Like I love Dan Folger, who played Hutch.
Yeah.
Like I love him. I love him in all the other stuff that I've seen him in. He's gone on to do like Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Right.
He was Jacob in those movies.
Yeah.
And so, like they like this movie, they were in their 20s when they did this movie. Now they're like older, and
Yeah.
wiser.
Which I mean, this has a lot of actors and stuff that I really like too. So,
Yeah, yeah. The whole cast is good. Like
and
the whole,
they complement each other pretty well, and
yeah,
you know,
yeah. So what would you rate this? How many fanboys out of
um,
5?
I would probably go with 4.5 fanboys.
I go with 5 out of 5 fanboys. I love this movie. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to watch it, you can watch it for free with ads on YouTube. That's the easiest way to watch this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's how I had to watch it.
Yeah, like I own a copy of it on like Blu-ray or DVD, but I watched it on YouTube for like, you know, it's a legal way to watch it. You know, it's, you know,
yeah, and it's convenient.
It's convenient. It's very convenient. I don't have to go dig out my movie to go watch it. You know.
So
But
yeah. And I mean, you should probably. I mean, obviously, if you made it this far in the show, you watch the show first. But I mean, you should probably watch it and maybe come back and listen to the show again, because I think it'll give you a different viewpoint of how everything is after you've actually seen the movie and actually you know, listen to it and everything.
Yeah, true.
So overall, I think it was a pretty good movie. You know, like I said, with the messages and everything, and just really having that fun time and almost doing like the Make-A-Wish Foundation thing, you know, with Linus's character and everything, and them trying to fulfill this dream that they've had.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
So since you've picked some movies, and you're in my eyes you're 1-1, you know, because you did pick that horrible movie Cockarimbo, but you know
you said this was for live action, and then there's anime.
Well, I'm just saying.
My live action, I'm like 2-0. Okay.
Wait, what was the live action movie we watched?
I don't know.
Oh, you picked Beverly Hills Ninja.
Yeah.
So since I picked Freaky in this movie, am I 2-0 now for my picks?
Sure.
Because you liked all the stuff that I've picked so far.
Sure, but you know the worst thing about it is, and I'm just going to bring this up because obviously you forgot.
What?
But you know how last week you brought it up and you told me that oh, you know, that's one thing, such a horrible movie or whatever, and then you check our YouTube channel and you're like, it's the most popular one. Everybody watches it, and
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I went back.
I just want to bring it up. I don't exactly know if I'm 1-0 or 1-1 for that.
Oh yeah. So occasionally, like, we have the YouTube channel Otakuology. If you want to go check out the YouTube channel, that's cool. We just put our episodes up there, kind of as an archive thing, or if people just don't want to like listen to the podcast but want to listen to it on YouTube, you know.
Yeah, maybe if people don't have access to the other mediums.
Yeah, so our YouTube channel is like really small, and we don't like really promote it that often, you know.
Right.
And I was going there looking through the numbers, and I was like, we would get like a couple here and there, maybe like 20, 30 views on some of them, you know. And then like 2, 3, 10, and I keep scrolling, and it's like 100 and something views on this video.
Right.
And I was like, who the fuck is watching Cockarimbo?
Right. Maybe our views on that, because it's not one of the big popular movies or shows that a lot of people cover. So maybe we're one of the few people that took it seriously.
I mean, like our views versus our downloads are like drastically different. Like we get more downloads than views,
right,
for our podcast.
But I will point out on that one, because you know all the research you and I tried to do before that when we watched it. I
didn't do any research on it.
Yeah, remember you watched some of the other like people where they reviewed it and stuff.
I happened to click on it because I thought it was the movie.
Oh. Yeah, well, there's only like 2 of them out there, and they're not really like, they don't dissect it the way that I feel like you and I do.
No,
and so I think probably compared to other people out there like you and I do put out better product, I would say, than a bunch of other people that do some of the same work.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, you know.
I have a hard time critiquing my own work.
So,
but yeah. Anyways, if you would like to leave us a voice message that we could play on the podcast, you can do so at anchor.fm/otakuology, or click the link down below in our descriptions on the podcast. If you want to email us, you can do so at otakuologypodcast@gmail.com. Go check out our YouTube channel, Otakuology, as well as our other YouTube channel, Gotta Read 'Em All Podcast, where we talk all about Pokemon Adventures, the manga.
right.
I'm starting to upload more stuff to the YouTube channel. I uploaded our Unwind episodes onto the YouTube channel.
Oh yeah.
We'll have to see how those do. And yeah, check out the channel, check out the podcast, share the podcast, tell your friends, comment, give us feedback. That's one thing we would love to see is feedback.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, on the voice recording thing, leave us what's something that you actually fangirl over,
or what do you want us to cover on the podcast?
That's true.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
as always, guys, like what we like to say here, we'll see you next Tuesday.
I gotta go take a shit.